Hi all, nice to see you guys again. These days, you probably keep hearing about Tengah, but let me ask you, do you actually know where Tengah is in Singapore? Some common question that many buyers are asking is this: will Tengah eventually become another Punggol, as it seems to be very ulu place? So today, let's take a look at where Tengah is and why this new town is getting so much attention. Before we continue, here's a quick disclaimer. The information shared is based on current data and my personal analysis, and it's meant for general guidance only. Okay, next, here's what I will be covering today. I'll be going through with you on the general understanding on Tengah. Is Tengah going to be the next Punggol? And the Tengah pricing, and also my honest view on Tengah. If you look at the map, Tengah is actually surrounded by towns many Singaporeans already know. On this side, we have the Jurong West, and over at this side here, we have the Bukit Batok area. And right above Tengah is actually the Choa Chu Kang and Bukit Panjang area. So as per what you can see here, Tengah is actually right in the middle of all these mature towns. So why Tengah is getting attention? The reason Tengah is getting so much attention today really comes down to what's happening around it. Right beside Tengah, we have the Jurong Innovation District. And this Jurong Innovation District is where a lot of advanced manufacturing and tech companies are expected to be based. And not far away, we have the Jurong Lake District. And this is where the government plans to develop into Singapore's second CBD. So, if you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, Tengah is not just a new town on its own. It actually sits in between the mature estates and two major future growth areas. That's why more buyers and investors are starting to pay attention, because this is really part of the larger transformation of the West. On top of that, with the upcoming Jurong Region Line, connectivity across the West will improve significantly. So in this video, I'll walk you through where Tengah is, why it was developed, will it become the next Punggol, and most importantly, what is happening to the property prices there today. In simple terms, Tengah is a town built to support the future growth of the West region. Now, let's zoom in a bit more to understand how Tengah is actually planned. Tengah is not just one single estate. The whole town is divided into 5 districts, and each comes with its own concept. At the top, we have the Forest Hill District, and this is designed to be the most nature-inspired area, surrounded by greenery. And next, we have the Brickland District, and which takes reference from the Tengah Pass as a brick-making area. Right in the center, we have the Park District, and this is where the town center and most of the community spaces will be. And besides this is the Garden District, and this is where the government has planned with more open spaces, parks, and greenery for residents. And over here, we have the Plantation District, and this is actually the first district that was launched in Tengah. When we talk about Tengah, we shouldn't look at Tengah in isolation. We need to look at a bigger transformation happening in the west of Singapore. First, we have the Jurong Innovation District, and this is planned as a key hub for advanced manufacturing and technology, working closely with NTU. Second, we have the Jurong Lake District, which is set to become Singapore's largest business district outside the city centre. And right in between these two major growth areas, we have Tengah. And this is planned as a new forest town with around 42,000 new homes. Now, another important factor to look at is the Tengah future MRT connectivity. Today, many people feel that Tengah is a bit far or not so convenient, and that's a fair point, but this is expected to change when the new MRT line is completed. This line that you are seeing here is actually the Jurong Region Line. It is brand new MRT line designed to serve the western region of Singapore. What's interesting is that Tengah will have multiple stations along this line, which is these 4 stations here. You can see stations like Tengah MRT, Tengah Plantation MRT, Tengah Park. So in terms of connectivity, this line will link Tengah to key transport nodes such as Jurong East MRT Station, Boon Lay MRT, and also Choa Chu Kang MRT. This means residents can easily connect to other MRT lines and travel across Singapore. But of course, we also need to be realistic. The Jurong Region Line is still under construction and will be completed in phases over the next few years. So buyers looking at Tengah today are typically focusing on the long-term potential rather than immediate convenience. Personally, I always share this with buyers. Tengah may not feel the most convenient today, but the real question is, how would it look like 5 to 10 years down the road? Because as the MRT line completes and the Jurong transformation progresses, connectivity across the West will improve significantly. At the same time, Tengah is still a new town, so amenities and infrastructure will take time to build up. But if the overall transformation of the West continues as planned, Tengah could eventually become a key residential town supporting this entire region. So I would say Tengah is not for everyone, but for buyers who understand the long-term growth of the West, this is where it starts to become very interesting. Now, let's talk about another important factor for many buyers: schools. If you look at a map, you will notice that Tengah is not completely isolated. It is actually surrounded by a number of existing and upcoming schools. Within Tengah itself, there are plans for new primary schools which will support the growing number of families moving into the area. For example, you can see a new primary school plan within Tengah such as ACS, Bukit View Primary School, as well as Pioneer Primary School located nearby. Around the surrounding estates, there are also several established schools such as Jurong Primary School, Bukit Batok Secondary School, Princess Elizabeth Primary School. And what this means is, even though Tengah is a new town, we are not starting from zero when it comes to the education options. There is already a supporting network of schools in the surrounding areas, and more will be added within Tengah itself over the time. But of course, just like other parts of Tengah, the full range of schools within a town will take time to develop. So for families moving in early, they might initially rely more on the nearby estates like Bukit Batok and Jurong. From a schooling perspective, Tengah may not be fully mature yet, but the foundation is already there, and it will continue to grow as the town develops. And what you are seeing here is the Jurong Region Line. This is a brand new MRT line with 24 stations spanning across the entire western region. This line is not just serving Tengah alone. It actually connects multiple key areas together. On one side, you have the Choa Chu Kang MRT station, which links to the North-South line. On the other end, you have the Jurong East MRT, and one of the busiest transport hubs in Singapore, connecting to multiple lines. And further down, it is also connecting to the Boon Lay MRT station. Now, if you zoom into Tengah itself, you will notice something quite unique. Tengah is not served by just one station. It has multiple stations within the town, including Tengah, Hongkar, Tengah Plantation, Tengah Park. But most importantly, this line connects Tengah to key employment and education nodes such as the Jurong Lake District, the Jurong Innovation District, and NTU. So today, the connectivity may not feel fully ready yet, but eventually it will become connected once the entire line is up and running. Tengah line is actually under study. If we look at Singapore's future rail network, one important line for Tengah is the Jurong Region Line, which is expected to open in stages around 2027 to 2029. This line will connect Tengah to areas like Jurong, NTU, and the Western region. Beyond the Jurong Region Line, there are some early studies for a possible Tengah line in the future, which could connect Tengah to areas like Bukit Batok, Queenstown, and Bukit Merah. But this is still a long-term possibility and may only happen in 2040. So buyers entering today are really buying into the future transport network, not just what exists today. If the real connectivity improves as planned, accessibility to Tengah will become much stronger over the time. But the key question is whether buyers are comfortable waiting for the transformation. Tengah today is still early stage. Transportation will improve, but patience is required. So, do you think Tengah is going to be the next Punggol? Or would it be different? Tengah may not become the next Punggol exactly, but it could follow a similar story, a new town that slowly grows as infrastructure, jobs, and amenities comes in. And here is the current state of the Tengah town. You can see there are limited amenities and majority of the infrastructure is still under construction. It will still take some time to fully develop the entire town. There are some similarities in the way it is developed, but there are also some differences, which I will break it down further in terms of these three categories. I'm going to break it down in terms of the job opportunities, town concept, and transport expansion. So in terms of the job opportunities, first, the location of Punggol is pretty isolated at the start. The employment hub was slowly developed in Punggol. That's why we have Punggol Digital District today. We just opened not long ago, as well as the Singapore Institute of Technology (SIT). However, for Tengah, Jurong Lake District and Jurong Innovation District are already partially developed, and TU are also nearby before this new town is fully developed. Next, let's zoom into the town concept. Every new town has its own concept. Punggol is more like a waterfront town concept. The concept of Tengah is quite different as it is planned as Singapore's first forest town, which is it focuses on the sustainability, green living and car-light planning, with a car-free town centre. A car-free town centre means a safer environment for kids and elderly and less noise and pollution. There will be more greenery and open space as the vehicles will travel underground rather than on the surface streets. How about the transport? Transport was slowly built where Punggol MRT was already opened in 2003 and Waterway Point was developed much later. Tengah is opposite because the Jurong Region Line is still under construction. The residents there mainly rely on driving on bus as the main transport while waiting for Jurong Region Line to complete. Location-wise, it is kind of having an advantage because the Jurong Innovation District and Jurong Lake District are already nearby. Alright, let's move on to the property pricing in Tengah today. This is the first private residential land bid in Tengah. As we know, there are existing 3 ECs at Tengah, and the land cost of this private residential is actually 821 per square foot per plot ratio. And let's take a look at the EC land cost. There are 3 ECs that have been launched in Tengah: Copen Grand, Auto Place, and Nova Place. Nova Place is the latest EC in Tengah, and the land bid is actually 703 per square feet per plot ratio. Now, let's do a quick comparison. I have shortlisted 3 districts: Tampines, Tengah, and Woodlands. What I'm comparing here is the land cost gap between the ECs and nearby private residential projects, based on the most recent launches. Let's start with Tampines. The latest EC is Reveal, and we are comparing it against a nearby mixed-use private development, Pioneer Residences. Here, the land cost gap is about 31%. Next, Tengah. The latest EC launch is Nova Place, with a land cost of around 703 per square feet per plot ratio. The first residential site was bid at 821 per square feet per plot ratio. That's roughly a 70% gap. And then let's move on to Woodlands. The upcoming EC land cost is about 794 per square feet per plot ratio, while the latest private project, Norwood Grand, was bid at around 904 per square feet per plot ratio. That gave us a gap of about 14%. So, how do we decide which one is a smarter buy based on the gap? And how do we interpret the numbers here? So, based on what we saw earlier, yes, EC is cheaper. But let me ask you one question. If today the gap is only about 14% to 17%, what are you actually giving up for that difference? Let me break it down for you. If an EC, you will need to hold for a 5 years MOP lock-in period. You cannot sell even if the market is good. And you are subjected to the income ceiling eligibility. Your buyer pool is more restricted at the start because you can only sell it to Singaporeans and Singapore PR upon MOP. If you go for the private property, right, there is no MOP period. You have full flexibility. If the market moves upwards, you can exit anytime, and you are exposed to the full private market demand. For me, I always share this with my clients. If the saving is significant, EC definitely makes a lot of sense. But when the gap becomes more, I would rather you go for something with more flexibility. And here is my honest view on Tengah. Every new town has pros and cons. The question is, are you entering before or after it becomes proven? So if you summarize Tengah in a very simple way, on a positive side, if you are looking at a town with strong long-term planning and near future job hubs, you may be able to get something at a competitive pricing as developer is also monitoring the demand and response in this new township. But on the other hand, we also need to recognize the fact that Tengah is still work in progress, where the MRT is not fully ready yet, and many amenities are still building up. If you are someone who values immediate convenience, this may not be the best fit yet. But if you are comfortable with a longer term view, I strongly believe this is where the opportunity lies. Alright, we have come to the end of this video. I hope this has given you a clearer understanding of Tengah. I'll be sharing more insights on upcoming project analysis. So if you find this helpful, do remember to like and subscribe to stay updated. And if you have any property questions, just drop me a message at the number on screen. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!